Here we go again, the biggest smartphone release of the year, and again, it's Apple's latest handset, the iPhone X. It brings with it the biggest changes ever to iPhones, so what better way to introduce it than with the biggest guide on YouTube. 4 sections, each time-stamped in the description, so you can jump straight to the content you want to watch. Let's roll. I'm Rob Wilson, you're watching the Video Gadgets Journal, and this is more than 100 iPhone X tips and tricks. If it isn't already obvious, the iPhone X doesn't have a home button, a radical change for Apple devices, so we have to deal with that with new gestures. Simply put, there is a new home bar at the bottom and that acts as your home button and a swipe. So if I want to exit an application, I simply swipe up from the bottom of the screen. It should also be noted that this switches to landscapes, and now we have the home bar at the bottom again, swipe up to exit back to the home screen. To see all of your currently open apps, swipe up from the bottom of the screen and pause in the middle. You will then see all of your currently open applications, and you can do this both on the home screen or within applications. Exactly the same thing happens, swipe up and pause to see your existing open applications. Now, if you're already in an application and you see that the home bar is black, that means there are other applications open, and you can simply swipe on that bar to quickly move from one application to the other. If you wanted to do it in a more fancy way, you can sort of lift up from the bottom of the bar, move it to the right, and it's a fancier animation, but it does essentially the same thing as simply swiping. If you want to close currently open apps, swipe up from the bottom of the screen and pause. You can't swipe just yet though. What you need to do is hold on the application. Then you will see it crosses at the top. You can either close the application like that or then swipe it away. Previously, you accessed the control center on iOS devices by swiping up from the bottom of the screen, but obviously that doesn't work anymore. Instead, you need to swipe down from the top right of the screen where you can see your battery indicator, and that's where the control center is. Also note that this is the only place you can see the battery percentage. On the regular screen, it's not there. So something to bear in mind if you're really anal about how much battery percentage you have left. Also note that notifications are still accessed from the top of the screen, either on the clock or the nodule here. And speaking of things that haven't changed, if you swipe down from the middle of the home screen, that still gives you the search spotlight. No home button also means that Siri is now accessed from a new location. It's the power button. Simply press and hold to activate Siri.
Just to confirm, you'd like to call Howard Kinsey?
No. To take a screenshot, you need to press and hold the power and volume up button for half a second. And if you want to access the power controls on your phone, you need to press and hold the power button and volume down. If you have Apple Pay set up, you can access it by double tapping on the power button. However, if you want to turn that off, you can go to Settings, scroll down to Wallet and Apple Pay, and toggle the double click side button. When the phone is locked, you can see the lock screen by simply tapping on the screen, and when you do that, you get 2 options down here. If you 3D touch on either of them, for example a camera, that will launch a camera, or turn on the torch if you want to. This tap to wake feature can be turned off by going to Settings, then General, Accessibility, and then scrolling down to tap to wake. Toggle it on or off. The iPhone X is larger than the standard 16:9 aspect ratio, so you will get some letterboxing on the sides. You can make it full screen by pinching outwards, but obviously then you will have the problem of the notch here on your screens. You can pinch back in to put it back to its original screen size of the video. Having a large bodied screen always presents itself with some unique challenges when trying to reach stuff on screen. However, there is a feature that can help. Go to Settings, then General, followed by Accessibility, and toggle on Reachability. Now in Applications, if you swipe down on the home bar, that shortens the application so that you can reach everything on screen. It's only temporary, just so you can get stuff, so if you let go of the application, it will eventually go back to full size. So a very useful little tip, just in case you can't reach stuff on screen. One more thing to mention about applications in landscape mode, notifications are still brought in from the top of the screen in the middle, and the control center again is in the top right. Now, if it feels too scary and unfamiliar without the home button, you can kind of get it back by going to Settings, General, Accessibility, and then going to Assistive Touch. If you turn that on and then go to Customize Top Level, remove all of the icons except for one, change it to the Home option and press Done. So what that should do now is with the floating button here, this will act as a new home button. Like that. Undoubtedly, one of the biggest new features on the iPhone X is Face Unlock, whereby you look at the screen to unlock your device and then you can go to your home screen and use the device as usual. If you're not comfortable using this form of security, you can turn it off by going to Settings, then Face ID and Passcode. You will need to put in a manual passcode at this point. And from here you can control each of the options. So for example, you could turn off Phone Unlock so that now when I lock the phone, my Face ID doesn't unlock the device and I have to do it manually through the passcode. As well as controlling what features use Face ID and passcode, you can also apply this to the lock screen. So you can turn any of these things on or off depending on whether you have Face ID enabled. If you need to start again from scratch with Face ID, you can reset it here. And also, two more things to note here. Require attention for Face ID. If that's turned off, then you can unlock the device with your eyes closed. Also, attention awareness features. This tracks whether you're looking at the device, and if you're looking away, it may start to dim the screen and adjust volume alerts. So two things that increase or decrease the security of Face ID, play with them and see if they fit your preferences. The personal digital assistant Siri has some new tricks up its sleeve. For example, translate video gadgets journal.
Sure. Translate it to which language? Diario del videoregistratore.
However, it does have some limitations. Translate video gadgets journal into Swedish.
I can't translate it to Swedish yet, but I can translate it to French, German, Italian, Mandarin Chinese, and Spanish.
Also, to ensure that Siri does English translations, you'll have to set it to the following. In Settings, go to Siri and search, then Language, and make sure that it's set to English United States. It can't translate in any of the other English versions of the language. You can set up your iPhone X to automatically go into Do Not Disturb mode while driving. In order to do this, go to Settings, Do Not Disturb mode, scroll down to Do Not Disturb while driving, activate, and you can turn it on to automatically or when connected to car Bluetooth. On Maps, when you search for major cities, you should get a flyover option. If you tap that, it will go into satellite mode and it gives you a fixed position where you can use it almost as augmented reality. So I can move the phone around as if it's a camera and scroll to go to different places in the city. Also, we have the city tour option. So if I press that, it will automatically start flying around the city, showing you different landmarks. Kind of cool thing to use. Apple Maps is also adding internal building layouts to airports. For example, if I go to Philadelphia International Airport and zoom in, it blacks out the rest of the map and now I can see inside the building, so I can see, for example, where the security checkpoint might be. You can also switch floors as well to go to the lower level 3, for example, to see what's going on there. This option is also being added to shopping malls as well. So this is the Westfield Valley Fair shopping mall. If I zoom in, it gives me a shop floor plan. Apple are adding more buildings every week, so check to see if your local buildings have been added. Apple Maps also has a one-handed zoom mode now. Simply double tap on screen and then you can zoom in and out by swiping up and down on the screen. Apple have introduced an easy way to push files from one application to another, or indeed one device to another. If you use the Share button, you should see the option to save to files. Now you can either save this to your iPhone, the device you're using, or to your iCloud drive so that you can share it between different devices. So I'm going to save this to my iCloud drive. Now if I go to the Files application on my device, I can see that image there and I would see it on any other iOS devices I have. So it's kind of like a hard drive for your iOS devices. The iPhone X is obviously a big screen, so it might be difficult to use the keyboard with just one hand unless you turn on one-handed keyboard. In order to do that, go to Settings, General, then scroll down to Keyboard. you have a one-handed keyboard here, so I'm going to turn on the write mode. Now if I go to a typing application such as iMessage, you can see that the keyboard has shifted slightly to the right, which should mean that I've got full coverage of the keyboard with just one hand. If I tap on the left arrow, that closes down one-handed mode, but if I wanted to get it back, I could long press or force touch the emoji down here. So now I have the two keyboard options, whether to put it to left-handed or right-handed. When you take a screenshot of your device using the power button and volume up, you get a preview in the bottom left hand corner. If you quickly tap on that, you can immediately make changes such as cropping it and using the markup tools at the bottom here to add your own notes. Once done, tap on done and you get the option to either save it as a photo or delete the screenshot. Now, if you need your device to auto answer calls, say for example you're out for a run, you can do this by going to settings, then going down to general, accessibility, scrolling down to call audio routing, and then auto answer calls. If you toggle it on, it will automatically answer the call after a predetermined set of time. Obviously, turn this on only when you need to. You can connect to password protected Wi-Fi if other iOS devices are already connected to it and are in your contacts. An option should appear automatically on screen to share the password. Let's have a look at the control center in more detail now. As said before, it's accessed from the top right of the screen. All of these panels here above the function buttons are fixed and you can't move them. We have sliders for things like brightness and volume, and also toggle buttons for Wi-Fi and Bluetooth, and many of these panels can be force touched, so pressed harder to get more access. For example, we have more buttons here in this top palette. If I force touch on brightness, I get extra options such as night shift and true tone. The function buttons along the bottom also have force touch actions. For example, with the torch, I could set the level of brightness if I wanted to. With the timer, I can increase or decrease the amount of time quickly, and with the camera, we have the usual options on what camera picture to take. Now, those are just the default functions in the control center. You can add a lot more by going to settings, control center, and customize controls. Those are your defaults, but then you can add all of these controls as well. So let's add alarm, power mode, text size, and screen recorder. Now when I bring down the control center, we have extra buttons here for all these different bits of functionality. Not only that, you can prioritize these as well. So let's say we want to bring screen recorder to the top of that list, and we want to send a flashlight down to the bottom. Again, access the control center, and you can see how these buttons have now been realigned. One of the biggest new features in the control center is the ability to screen record. I'm sure gamers will be interested in this one. You can force touch on the screen recorder and you can record either with just internal system sounds, or you can turn on the microphone so it will record from your external mic. Once you're happy with those settings, you can tap on the record button. It will do a countdown to prepare you for the recording. Now in the top left hand corner, you'll see that the time is red to indicate that the screen is recording, and it will record everything you do on screen in terms of actions. I'm just going to do a very quick recording here. Tap on the red time to stop the recording, and then a notification will appear at the top. We can quickly jump to the photo gallery and then play the video of the screen recording. Now in the top left hand corner, you'll see that the time is red to indicate that the screen is recording, and it will record everything you do on. Now, I have a particular interest in screen recording on my channel, so check out the hundreds of videos I've already made on the subject. Wireless charging has finally arrived on iPhone, and it's Qi compliant, which means that pretty much any wireless charger should work. The latest version of iOS has what I would best describe as a work in progress dark mode. It is available on the iPhone 10. In order to get to it, go to settings, then scroll down to general, accessibility, display accommodations, invert colors, and then smart invert. Now, on the face of it, this looks like a perfect working version of dark mode. Everything's gone black and you have some nice color schemes there. But things start to fall apart a little bit when you get to the home screen. Colors look a bit off, and when you go into applications, it doesn't quite look right on occasions. Pictures may look ghosted out, but it's slowly improving with every new update to iOS. So give it a try and see if you like it, but I don't think you'll want to keep on this dark mode just yet. There is a new setting called True Tone Display which subtly changes the output of your display depending on your environment. To turn it on or off, go to Settings, then Display and Brightness, and you've got the toggle here. And you may notice that my screen has gone a bit warmer because of the current environment that I'm in, but that will change over time. You can also access this through the control center by force touching on the brightness setting, similar to night shift, but it doesn't automatically go to the warmer temperatures at night, which is what night shift will always do. A couple more settings to look at for brightness now. If you want to adjust the amount of time it takes before the device locks when you're not looking at it or using it, you can change it through the auto lock feature. And oddly, auto brightness isn't in display and brightness. Instead, you have to go to General, Accessibility, Display Accommodations, and auto brightness is here. Don't know why, but there's your answer. There's a new feature in iPhone storage that allows you to offload applications but not delete data from it. For example, if I tap on Facebook, we have the option here to offload the application. So it will free up storage, but the documents and data are saved. So we could save at 240 meg, and then if I need to bring back Facebook, it will act as if it was never uninstalled. Now there are more iPhone storage settings, but because I haven't used my iPhone 10 for long enough, I can't show you them on that device, but my iPhone 7 will help us out in this regard. For the offload apps, you can apply that to everything on your system and enable it there, and it will also give you recommendations such as deleting your recently deleted album and where else you might have big storage concerns such as reviewing personal videos, which always take up more storage. So something to look at once in a while when you start to use your iPhone 10 on a regular basis. By default, when you change the volume on your home screen, that changes the ringer volume. But what if you wanted to just change your volume on the entire device instead? To do this, go to Settings, then scroll down to Sounds and Haptics, and you have the ringer and alerts option here. If you toggle Change with Buttons off, now when you're on the home screen, you'll be adjusting the system volume instead. If you would prefer to type to Siri rather than talk, go to Settings, General, Accessibility, find Siri in a list, and then toggle on Type to Siri. So now when I press and hold the power button, we get a keyboard and it doesn't listen to what I'm saying. In case you're having problems turning off the iPhone 10 through the physical buttons, you can now do it on screen by going to General in Settings, scrolling all the way down to the bottom, and you have a shutdown button there. And if you want to change how persistent your notifications are, you can go to Settings and Notifications, choose any particular app you want, and you now have the option for persistent, whereby the notification appears on screen and it doesn't go away automatically, you physically have to swipe it off screen. By default, your notifications are protected until unlocked by Face ID. But you can change this setting by going into the settings, notifications, show previews, and then set to always. So now when I show the lock screen, even if it's still locked, I can see my notifications. There are several ways you can launch the camera on the iPhone 10. First of all, if you just tap on screen to get the lock screen, you can swipe to the left to bring up the camera. Also from the lock screen, there is a button down here which if you force touch, that will launch the camera. If you've already unlocked your iPhone 10, again there are a number of options such as launching the camera from here as usual, but you can force touch there to get more options. And also from the control center, let's say you are currently in an application, if you bring down the control center, there's another option here, again force touch to get multiple options when opening the camera application. To take a quick simple picture, tap on the shutter button here, but if you prefer a physical button, the volume up button here does the same thing. But one thing to note, if you do take a picture in landscape, make sure that the volume rocker is at the top, or you may take a picture that's upside down. Also note that when you take a picture, it will make a shutter sound noise. You can turn that off by switching the silence toggle here. So now when I take a picture, it should be silent. If you want to focus on a particular object on screen, simply tap on it and the camera should refocus to whatever object that is. If you want to check the exposure level, tap on screen. You'll see a sundial next to the box and then you can drag that up and down to change the exposure. Now if you wanted to lock both focus and exposure, tap on screen and hold until you see at the top of the camera AEAF lock. So now neither focus or exposure will change even if you change the camera position around. To turn this off, simply tap on screen again to reset it to automatic mode. The iPhone X does have a dedicated optical 2x zoom lens. To enable it, simply tap 1x there and then you can get some nice blur effects or shallow depth of field. You can also zoom in even further by turning the dial, but once you do that it goes back to digital zoom, so you won't get quite as good quality. To take multiple pictures very quickly, in other words burst mode, tap and hold the shutter button. Now when I go to my gallery, it will show burst mode pictures with the number of photos taken here. To select one picture from the burst mode, go to select and you'll see a slider at the bottom here so you can see different pictures, or simply swipe left and right. If I tap on the circle down here, I can select multiple pictures. And then when I tap done, it will ask me if I want to keep everything or only the favorite pictures that I selected. Also note, if you turn on the timer at the top here, whenever you take pictures it will automatically take 10 burst mode shots, just like that. If you want to record mini videos whenever you take a picture, 1.5 seconds before you press the shutter button and 1.5 seconds after, that's live mode. You can toggle it on here. So now when I take the picture here, if I go to my gallery and then look at the live button here to indicate this is a live video, I can then look at the still picture but force touch to see the live photo behind it. On the camera app, if I swipe to the left, I get portrait mode, which can do some very funky things with different settings. So for example, if I want to take a picture of Mario here, this is going to look very fancy once I go into the gallery, like that. So give it a try and see what you can do with it. It also works in the front facing mode, so now if I look at the camera, hopefully this might work, but the camera's kind of in the way here, which doesn't help. So you might have to try it without all this equipment and obviously out in the wild to see what it looks like. But those are two very quick demonstrations. Have a play of it and see what you can think. As you can see here, it's completely blurred out me, but the camera is nicely in focus. And of course, that's just the new feature, Portrait. There's plenty more options, including square photos, panoramas, and if you swipe to the other side of your regular photo app, you'll get video, slow-mo and time-lapse. So make sure you give all of those features a try in the camera application. Now this next feature isn't in the camera app, but it certainly does use the camera, and it's Animojis. So if I send a message to somebody and tap on the App Store, the second option here looks like a monkey face, but it gives you plenty of options to choose different types of faces, from a robot to a cat to a dog. And now it's looking at the front facing camera, and as you can see, as I raise my eyebrows and shake my head, it's recording all this. So I'm now going to press the record button. It is recording me talking now. When I press stop, you can preview it and then send it to your friend or whoever as an Animoji. Now one extra thing you can do here, once it's sent, if you tap on the actual Animoji, you can tap on the share button down here and save it as a video to your own photo gallery. Now if you want to change any of the camera settings, you don't actually do it through the camera app. Instead you have to go to settings and then scroll down to the camera and you'll find all the settings here. As you jump in and out of the camera application, it will reset itself to defaults unless you select the preserve mode. For example, if you exit while it's in panorama, it will switch back to photo mode, but you can stop that from happening by toggling this on. Same for the portrait mode. As you mess about with those settings, it will default itself once you exit it. And live photos, again, you can toggle that on and off if you're jumping in and out of the application and you want to preserve your settings. Other options include the grid, which will split your camera into 9 different boxes with 2 vertical lines and 2 horizontal lines. Another option you also have is the scan QR codes automatically. So when I have a QR code in front of the camera, you can see that it automatically brings up the link of that QR code and I can tap on the notification to jump straight to Safari to see what that QR code is all about. Out of the box, your iPhone X records at 1080p 30 frames a second, but you can change that all the way up to 4K resolution at 60 frames a second. It helpfully lists how much average storage space that will take up, so bear that in mind if you are changing the camera settings. You can also use similar options for slow-mo as well, which records 1080p at 240 frames per second by default. One more thing about recording video: if you're in any mode other than 1080p at 30 frames a second, it will show you in the camera video app at the top right what mode you're currently in, but unfortunately you can't change it here. You would have to go back to settings. There are two different camera formats. Those include high efficiency, which is the default, takes pictures at HEIF and HEVC formats, but for most compatible, which takes JPEG pictures, you can switch it on there if you need to. Finally, we have the Auto HDR option, so this will automatically try and take HDR pictures for increased quality, but if you want to keep the normal photo as well from those stitched together pictures, you can toggle it on there. You can set a key photo for your live photos if you want to. In the photo gallery, tap Edit. You can then slide across the entirety of the live photo, and when you let go you can see Make Key Photo. So now that is your main photo when you're in the photo gallery. A couple of other editing features you can do with live photos is trim them if you need to, and you can also crop them by tapping the crop button there. So we'll make it smaller like that. You can also crop the picture, so if you go to Edit and then tap on Live, this would now be me cropping the picture rather than the live photo. Another thing you can do in the edit section of live photos is quickly mark it up by tapping this button here and then the markup option. This will now give me a certain number of stationary tools like pencils so I can draw on the live photo. You can also add quick effects to live photos as well if you swipe up on the picture. So now we can change it to a bounce, so it's going backwards and forwards. We can also change it to a loop if we wanted to. And another option is to do long exposure. Now the problem with this particular picture is that it'll just look like a big blur, but this is to be used with water effects such as a waterfall. Try it out in the wild and see what happens. You will be delighted to know that the iPhone X supports animated GIFs such as this one of Captain Picard despairing. You'll also be delighted to know that all animated GIFs are put into their own folder and it's called Animated. You do have the option to turn images into watch faces for your Apple Watch if you have one. To do that, tap on an image, then the share button in the bottom left, and finally create watch face, although my logo doesn't quite fit on a square watch face. The iPhone X can take raw photographs if you need that sort of functionality, but you can't do it through the built-in camera app. You will need to download an application from the App Store. There's plenty available. And that's your complete guide to using the brand new iPhone X. Now obviously I couldn't cover absolutely everything in this guide, but I have made several other monster tutorials that include tips on iOS 11, the iPhone 7, and even the Galaxy S8 if you're into the Android side of smartphones. Don't forget to like this video if you found it useful, and make sure to subscribe for more iPhone X coverage on the Video Gadgets Journal. Enjoy the rest of your tech day. Bye for now.